The house was calm. Soft yellow lights glowed in the hallway, casting long, gentle shadows across the polished floor. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, brushing against the windows like a quiet lullaby. It was the kind of night that felt safe, still, almost perfect. Inside the nursery, a tiny baby slept peacefully in her crib, wrapped snugly in a warm, pastel blanket. Her name was Emma. Just a few months old, she had already become the center of her parents' world. Their joy, their hope, their everything. Her soft breathing filled the room with a comforting rhythm, rising and falling like a delicate melody. A small night lamp glowed beside her crib, painting the walls with a soft amber light. Stuffed toys sat neatly on a shelf nearby, silent guardians in their own way, while a gentle mobile hung above her, swaying ever so slightly. Everything in the room spoke of love, care, and warmth. Lying quietly on the floor beside the crib was Max, the family dog. A golden retriever with a thick, shining coat and kind, watchful eyes. He had been part of the family long before Emma was born, but from the moment she arrived, something in him had changed. He had taken on a new role, one he seemed to understand without ever being taught. A protector. Max rested his head on his paws, his body relaxed but not fully asleep. His ears twitched now and then, catching even the faintest of sounds. He had positioned himself close enough to the crib that he could sense every movement, every breath. To anyone watching, it might have looked like a peaceful scene, a sleeping baby and a loyal dog keeping quiet company. And for the most part, it was. But tonight, something felt different. Max slowly opened his eyes. The calm in the room remained unchanged, yet there was a subtle shift in the air, something almost impossible to notice, but enough to stir his instincts. He lifted his head slightly, his gaze drifting toward the door. Silence. Then back to the crib. Emma stirred gently, letting out a soft sigh in her sleep. Max's eyes softened as he watched her, his body easing for just a moment. He let out a quiet breath, as if reassuring himself that everything was all right. Still, the feeling didn't go away. Outside, the wind grew just a little stronger, rustling the leaves with a faint, uneasy rhythm. The shadows in the hallway seemed to stretch a bit longer, darker than before. Max shifted his position, now sitting upright. His posture changed, from relaxed to alert. His ears stood higher, his eyes sharper. He wasn't scared. He was aware. Whatever it was, he could feel it. And even though the house remained silent, even though nothing seemed out of place, Max made a silent decision. Tonight, he wouldn't sleep. Tonight, he would watch. Because deep down, in a way only he could understand, he knew something wasn't right. As the night grew deeper, the silence inside the house became heavier, thicker, like a blanket draped over everything. The soft hum of the night lamp and the distant whisper of the wind were the only sounds that remained. Then suddenly, Max lifted his head. It wasn't a normal movement. It was sharp, instant, like something had snapped him out of a light sleep. His ears twitched. His eyes widened. Something wasn't right. For a moment, he stayed completely still, listening. His breathing slowed, his body tense as he focused on the darkness beyond the nursery walls. The air felt different now, no longer calm, no longer safe. And then he heard it. A faint sound, so soft it could almost be mistaken for nothing. Scratch. Max's ears tilted forward. His gaze shifted toward the door, his eyes narrowing. The sound had come from somewhere inside the house. Not outside. Not the wind. Inside. Another pause. Silence. Then again. Scratch, scrape. It was subtle, uneven, like something dragging lightly across a surface. Not loud enough to wake a human, but loud enough for him. Max slowly pushed himself up onto his feet. Every movement was controlled, careful. His paws made no sound against the floor as he stood there, frozen in place, listening harder. His gaze locked on the nursery door. For a second, instinct told him to go, to leave the room, to investigate, to confront whatever was making that noise. But then, he turned his head. Emma. She lay peacefully in her crib, unaware of anything. Her tiny chest rose and fell gently, her small fingers curled near her face. She was safe for now. Max hesitated. The sound came again, slightly louder this time. Scratch. It echoed faintly through the hallway, just beyond the door. His body stiffened. Every instinct screamed at him to act. But not just to chase. To protect. Max made his choice. Instead of moving toward the door, he turned away from it. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped closer to the crib, closer to Emma. He positioned himself right beside her, his body now between the crib and the door. His stance changed completely. No longer calm, no longer resting. Now he was guarding. His eyes never left the door. His ears stayed sharp, catching every tiny vibration in the house. Even the wind outside felt louder now, as if it carried a warning. The scratching stopped, but the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was tense, heavy, like something was waiting. Max let out a low, almost silent breath. Not a bark, not yet, just a warning to whatever might be out there. He didn't understand what it was, but he knew one thing for certain. It didn't belong, and whatever was lurking in the darkness beyond that door would not get anywhere near the baby. Not tonight. Max positioned himself right beside Emma's crib, close enough to feel the warmth of her presence, close enough to react in an instant. He didn't bark. He didn't panic. He just watched. His body was perfectly still, but every muscle was awake. His chest rose and fell slowly, controlled, as if even his breathing knew not to make a sound. His eyes remained fixed on the door, unblinking, sharp, aware. Every shadow, every sound, every movement. Nothing escaped him. The nursery, once soft and peaceful, now felt different. The dim amber light cast long, shifting shadows across the walls. The gentle sway of the hanging mobile created faint movements that, on any other night, would have been soothing. But tonight, every motion mattered. Max's ears twitched at the slightest noise, the ticking of a distant clock, the faint creak of wood settling, the whisper of wind brushing against the house. Each sound was examined, measured, judged. Safe or not. Emma stirred softly in her sleep, letting out a tiny murmur. Instantly, Max's gaze softened for just a second as he glanced toward her. His posture didn't relax, but something in his expression changed, protective, almost gentle. She was the reason he stayed, the reason he didn't move, the reason he wouldn't fail. Minutes turned into hours. Time seemed to stretch endlessly in the quiet darkness. The house remained silent, but Max didn't move an inch. Not to lie down, not to rest, not even to shift his weight. He stood like a statue, unyielding, unwavering. His legs began to feel the strain, but he ignored it. His eyes burned slightly from staying open so long, but he refused to blink for more than a second. Even the smallest lapse felt like a risk he couldn't afford. Because whatever he had sensed earlier, it hadn't left. The scratching was gone, but the feeling remained, deep, unsettling, lingering in the air like a silent warning. Max's nose twitched as he caught a faint scent drifting through the house. It was unfamiliar, subtle, but real. His body stiffened even more, his focus sharpening. Something had been there, or still was. He let out the faintest growl, so low it was almost inaudible. Not a sound meant to alarm, but one meant to warn. A message to the unseen. I'm here, and I'm watching. Outside the nursery, the darkness felt heavier than before. The hallway stood still, empty to the eye, but not to instinct. Max didn't need to see it. He could feel it. His body tense, his eyes alert. Every second that passed only strengthened his resolve. He wasn't guessing anymore. He wasn't imagining things. Whatever he sensed, whatever had made that sound, was real. And Max wasn't taking any chances. Not with Emma. Not ever. In the darkest hour of the night, when time itself seemed to slow and the world outside had fallen completely silent, the sound returned. This time, clearer. Not faint. Not distant. Close. Max's head snapped slightly toward the source, his entire body locking into place. His ears stood tall, straining to catch every detail. The air in the room felt heavier now, thick with something unseen, something wrong. Then it came again. A soft creak. Slow, careful, almost deliberate. Max's eyes shifted toward the window. For a moment, nothing moved. The curtains hung still, barely touched by the faint breeze. The glass reflected the dim glow of the night lamp, giving no hint of what lay beyond. But then, a faint movement, so slight that human eyes might have missed it. The curtain trembled, just a little. Max let out a low, warning growl. It rumbled deep in his chest, controlled but unmistakable. Not loud enough to wake the house, but strong enough to say one thing. I know you're there. His posture changed instantly. His legs stiffened, his shoulders squared, and his gaze locked onto the window with unbreakable focus. Something was there. Whether it was an intruder or something else, Max didn't know, but he didn't need to. All that mattered was Emma. The curtain shifted again, this time slightly more. A faint shadow passed across the edge of the glass, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. Max's growl deepened. A warning. Stronger now. His instincts were no longer whispering. They were shouting. Danger. Without hesitation, Max stepped closer to the crib. Slowly, deliberately, he positioned himself between Emma and the window, his body forming a barrier, solid, unwavering. Every inch of him was now focused on one purpose. Protect. Emma stirred softly behind him, unaware of the silent standoff unfolding just feet away. Her tiny hand moved slightly, brushing against the blanket. Max didn't turn. He didn't dare. His eyes remained fixed forward, his breathing steady but controlled. Even the smallest movement from the window was tracked, analyzed, challenged. Another faint sound followed. A light tap against the glass. Max's muscles tightened. Whoever, or whatever, was out there was closer now. Testing. Watching. Waiting. Max took a single step forward, placing himself even more firmly in front of the crib. His body lowered slightly, ready to react in an instant if the threat made a move. He wasn't afraid. He was ready. The room fell silent again, but this silence was different. It wasn't peaceful. It was tense. Heavy. Like the calm before something breaks. Max didn't blink. Didn't move. Didn't retreat. Because in that moment, he made a silent promise. No matter what stood beyond that window, no matter what tried to come inside, it would have to go through him first. And that was never going to happen. The hours dragged on. Tom no longer felt normal. Each minute stretched into something longer, heavier, as if the night itself refused to end. The house remained wrapped in silence, but it was no longer the comforting kind. It pressed in from every corner, thick with tension. Max refused to sleep, not even for a second. His body stood firm beside Emma's crib, unmoving, unshaken. The faint glow of the night lamp traced the outline of his still figure, like a silent guardian carved from stone. He stayed alert, guarding, protecting. His ears caught everything. The faint hum of electricity in the walls, the distant rustle of leaves outside, the subtle shifts of the house settling into the night. Every sound was measured. Every vibration questioned. Nothing was ignored. Now and then, the curtain near the window would flutter ever so slightly, and each time it did, Max's focus sharpened instantly. His eyes would narrow, his body tightening as he watched for any sign of movement beyond it. But nothing revealed itself. No clear shape. No sound loud enough to confirm what was out there. Only that feeling. That presence. Not once did he leave Emma's side. Even when his legs began to ache. Even when the strain crept into his muscles, he didn't move. His paws stayed planted firmly on the ground, as if stepping away, even for a moment, was not an option. Emma slept peacefully behind him, unaware of the long, silent battle being fought on her behalf. Her breathing remained soft and steady, untouched by the tension filling the room. Once, she let out a gentle cry in her sleep. Max reacted instantly. He turned his head slightly, just enough to check on her. His expression softened for a brief moment, his eyes filled with quiet reassurance. He lowered his head closer to the crib, listening to her breathing until it returned to calm. Only then did he face forward again. Back to the darkness. Back to the unknown. Not once did he relax. Every second mattered. Every sound carried weight. Even the silence felt like a warning. The memory of that scratching noise, the movement at the window, it lingered in his mind like a signal he couldn't ignore. His instincts remained sharp, refusing to fade, refusing to rest. It was as if he knew, deep down, beyond thought, beyond reason, that if he let his guard down, something terrible could happen. Outside, the wind picked up again, brushing harder against the walls. The faint tapping returned once, soft, uncertain, but enough to keep his focus locked in place. Max let out another low growl. Quiet. Controlled. A reminder. I'm still here. Hours passed like this, slow, unbroken, relentless. And through it all, Max never moved from his post. Because this wasn't just instinct anymore. It was a promise. A duty he had chosen without words. To stand. To watch. To protect. No matter how long the night lasted. He would be ready. Morning light slowly filled the room. At first, it came gently, soft rays slipping through the edges of the curtains, pushing away the darkness that had ruled the night. The shadows faded, the air shifted, and the house began to feel alive again. For most, it was the start of a new day. For Max, it was the end of a long, silent vigil. Down the hallway, Emma's mother stirred awake. The calm of the morning wrapped around her as she stepped out of her room, her thoughts simple and peaceful. Another day, another quiet morning with her baby. She walked toward the nursery, smiling softly, expecting to find Emma asleep, just as she had left her. The house felt normal. Still. Safe. But as she reached the nursery door, something felt off. She couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the stillness. Or maybe it was something deeper, something instinctive. Her hand rested on the doorknob for a second longer than usual. Then she slowly pushed it open. The door creaked softly. And in that moment, she froze. Max was still there. Exactly where he had been the night before. Standing stiff. Unmoving. His body looked tense, almost locked in place, as if he hadn't relaxed for even a second. His fur caught the morning light, but there was no warmth in his posture, only focus. His eyes, tired, heavy, but still alert. Still watching. For a brief second, confusion crossed her face. "Max," she whispered softly. He didn't move toward her, didn't wag his tail, didn't greet her like he always did. Instead, he remained exactly where he stood, beside the crib, between Emma and the rest of the room. Guarding. Her heart began to beat a little faster. Something wasn't right. She stepped inside slowly, her gaze shifting from Max to the crib. Emma was there. Safe. Peaceful. Still asleep. Relief washed over her, but it didn't last long. Because then she noticed something strange. The window. Her eyes moved toward it slowly. The curtain was slightly out of place, swaying faintly in the morning breeze. And the window was slightly open. Her breath caught. They always kept that window locked at night. Always. A chill ran down her spine as she took a step closer, her eyes scanning the frame, the glass, the small gap where it hadn't been fully shut. It wasn't wide open. Just enough. Enough for something to try. Or something to look inside. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it. But before she could speak, before she could even fully understand what she was seeing, she glanced back at Max. And suddenly, everything about his behavior made sense. The stillness. And in that moment, standing in the quiet light of morning, she realized something that sent a deeper chill through her chest. Max hadn't just stayed awake. He had protected her baby from something she never even knew was there. Heart pounding, she rushed inside. The calm of the morning shattered in an instant, replaced by a rising wave of fear she couldn't ignore. Her steps were quick, unsteady, as she moved straight to the crib. "Emma," she whispered, her voice trembling. She reached in and gently lifted her baby into her arms, holding her close, almost too tightly. For a second, she didn't even breathe, just listening, waiting. But Emma was safe. Warm. Unharmed. Still half asleep, she let out a soft, sleepy sound, unaware of the tension filling the room. Relief hit her all at once, making her knees feel weak. It's okay," she murmured, more to herself than to the baby. But something still wasn't right. She slowly looked down, and that's when she saw it. On the floor, near the window, were scratch marks. Faint, but clearly visible in the morning light. Thin, jagged lines etched across the surface, as if something had clawed or forced its way against it. Not random, not accidental. Intentional. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she whispered under her breath. She stepped closer, still holding Emma tightly, her eyes locked on the marks. Her heart pounded louder now, echoing in her ears as the reality began to sink in. Something had been there. Right there. Just a few feet away from the crib. Her gaze slowly lifted toward the window again, and this time, she moved closer to it. With a shaking hand, she pushed the curtain aside. The cool morning air brushed against her face. And then she saw it. Outside, on the soft ground just beyond the window, were faint footprints, leading away from the house. Her eyes widened. They weren't clear enough to identify, but they were there. Step by step, fading into the distance. Something had come close. Close enough to reach the window. Close enough to try. A chill ran through her entire body as her mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Someone, or something, had tried to get in. Her grip around Emma tightened instinctively. And then, slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes met Max. He was still standing in the same spot. Still between the crib and the window. Still alert, even now. But up close, she could see it clearly. The exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his body, the way his legs trembled ever so slightly after hours of standing guard. And suddenly, everything became clear. The open window, the marks on the floor, the footprints outside, Max's behavior. It all connected. Her eyes filled with tears. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice breaking. Max didn't respond with excitement. He didn't move. He just looked at her, calm, steady, as if he had simply done what needed to be done. And in that moment, she understood the truth. While they slept peacefully, unaware of any danger, Max had faced it. Alone. He hadn't barked, hadn't run, hadn't left. He had stood his ground. And whatever had tried to come inside had failed. Because Max had stopped it. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged Max tightly. For a moment, everything else faded. The fear, the questions, the shock of what had almost happened. All that remained was the overwhelming realization of what didn't happen because of him. "Max," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. This time he responded. Slowly, gently. His body, which had been tense all night, finally began to relax. His tail moved just slightly, not in excitement, but in quiet recognition. As if he understood it was over. He didn't bark. He didn't chase. He just protected. All night long. Without fear. Without hesitation. She pulled back just enough to look at him. His eyes, though heavy with exhaustion, still held that same calm strength. There was no panic in them. No confusion. Just a quiet, steady presence. As if what he had done was simply natural. Emma rested safely in her mother's arms, letting out a soft yawn as the morning light warmed the room. Completely unaware of the danger she had been in and the silent guardian who had stood between her and it. Her mother gently knelt down beside Max, still holding Emma close. With one hand, she stroked his head, her fingers moving slowly through his fur. "You stayed with her the whole time," she whispered. Max leaned slightly into her touch, his eyes softening now. The tension was finally leaving his body, replaced by something quieter, something peaceful, but also something deeper. Loyalty. Not something he had been taught. Not something he had been told to do. Something he simply felt. Because to him, Emma wasn't just a baby. She was family. The house began to come alive around them. The distant sounds of morning routines, the soft hum of a new day beginning. But inside the nursery, time seemed to pause just a little longer. To honor what had happened. To recognize what had been given, without a single word. Her mother pressed her forehead gently against Max's, closing her eyes as fresh tears slipped down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. Max blinked slowly, his breathing steady now, his body finally at rest. He didn't need praise. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need to explain anything. Because in his world, love didn't need words. It needed action. And when it mattered most, he had been there. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. No fear. No hesitation. Just instinct, guided by something stronger than anything else. Love. As the sunlight filled the room completely, wrapping everything in warmth, one truth stood clear above all else. No matter what danger came, no matter what darkness tried to enter, nothing in this world would ever harm Emma. As long as Max was there.